Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hi, today we are going to discuss about the famous carbohydrate addiction. Are we really addicted to carbs? It's impossible for some people to stay away from highly processed, sugar-containing junk foods, although most of them are well aware of the harmful effects of simple glucose on overall health. The reason for this insatiable sugar rush is debatable. Some think this can be simply a matter of willpower, a behavioral or psychological phenomenon, and some think there might be some complex brain chemistry involved in this entire addiction path. India, a country where celebrations are meaningless without savory and sweets, is the highest consumer of sugar in the world. In 2021, Indians consumed 28 million metric tons of sugar, which was 27 metric tons in the year 2020. Ironically, 80% of all deaths in India is caused by cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, cancer, which are very, very potential non-communicable diseases that are attributed by poor dietary factor, such as mindless consumption of refined sugar. What is refined carb addiction? People who crave simple carbohydrates, for example, pizza, pasta, sugar, binge on refined carb to feel good for a little while, and then feel stronger craving to eat more. This is an unstoppable craving rewarding cycle that suggests refined carbs can be as addictive as some infamous drug. Serge A. and colleagues mentioned that reward from sugar and sweet can substitute cocaine. In fact, sugar can be more rewarding and attractive. Now, what are the most addictive carbohydrates in the world? To understand that, researchers from Yale University developed a validated measurement tool called the Yale Food Addiction Scale, or YFAS, in 2009 to assess food addiction and related behavior. YFAS was tested by a group of university researchers to assess the addiction-like eating behavior in 504 participants and found 92% of the total participants were addicted to some sort of food. The researchers concluded that processed foods with high fat and high carbohydrate were most associated with food addiction. Here are 18 most addictive food lists that is listed by Healthline, which is embedded in the video. High glycemic index food and craving. So let us discuss different type of carbohydrates and addictions associated to that. A notable work by David Ludwig and colleagues in 12 overweight and obese men aged 18 to 35 years reported, unlike a low glycemic index meal, a high glycemic index meal increased hunger and stimulated brain regions that control reward and craving. Before we go ahead, I would like to tell you what is high glycemic and low glycemic index food. Glycemic index of food is measured by how that food affect blood sugar level. A food which has a high glycemic index value, that is more than 55 and 60, is considered to spike our blood sugar level. In a 2018 review, while explaining brain's response to high GI food, Belinda Lenz mentioned that in a group of vulnerable people, high glycemic carbohydrates trigger addiction-like neurochemical and behavioral responses. Additionally, the authors mentioned high glycemic index carbohydrates change insulin and blood sugar level rapidly, affect dopamine level, which is a neurotransmitter that controls brain cell signaling pathway for pain, motivation, and reward. So from these two research, what we understood is foods that are very high in carbohydrate are also called as high glycemic index food. And these food can actually affect the brain signal to response in a specific manner towards the hunger and the reward, etc. Now, what is the connection between mood and carbohydrate addiction? Most experimental studies that explain sugar and addiction are conducted on animals. However, there are research that also involve human beings. In a mouse model, 10% sucrose solution, sucrose is table sugar, and chow food mix, which is also a very high carbohydrate meal, were fed to lab rats, followed by a period of 12 hours of fasting. The result reported the rats were found to be anxious during and after the fast. In a trial, 61 overweight women aged 18 to 45 years with history of emotional eating chosen to carb-loaded beverage over a protein-rich one, even though they were blinded. So in this research, the women didn't know that what kind of drink they are being provided, but most of the women preferred carbohydrate-rich drink over a protein-rich drink when they had some emotional eating condition. Another double-blinded placebo-controlled trial with a similar study design revealed when in bad mood, non-carbohydrate cravers choose the carbohydrate beverage significantly more than the protein-rich beverage and reported improvement in mood. Authors concluded the research to add weightage to the existing concept of carbohydrate craving syndrome. Fructose addiction. Now, some researchers suggested fructose, the sugar which we obtain from fruit and honey, may also have addictive functionality as fructose resembles the property of ethanol and alcohol. Robert H. Lustig mentioned high fructose consumptions leads to liver inflammation, abnormal fat accumulation, causes insulin resistance, and promote hedonic hunger. So what is hedonic hunger? The hunger, hedonic hunger, is defined as a form of compulsive eating to obtain pleasure under no energy deficit. So this happens when you are not actually hungry, physically hungry, but emotionally hungry, and you want to feel better, you want to feel good, want to get a pleasure out of the eating. Constant exposure to hedonic hunger driven by sugar rush found to increase the risk of metabolic syndromes such as type 2 diabetes and heart issues and inflammatory diseases. For example, obesity is one of the biggest example in this case. But not all researchers are convinced by the sugar addiction theory. Some say that there is no such thing called sugar addiction, but other nutrients are also involved in this entire food addiction theory. A large review suggested food addiction is limited to a small group of population and encouraged more research to understand the addictive properties of food. Margaret L. Westwater and colleagues reviewed existing literature on sugar addiction and argued that there is lack of studies to support sugar addiction in humans. The most of the studies there were based on animal, and the reason for addiction like behavior, like binging in animals, might be due to the interval access to sugar and not influenced by some neurochemical interplay. So they just say that if you are depriving the body from sugar for a very long time, then after a certain period of time, the animals craved that particular food. Another cross-sectional study involving 1,495 students concluded that sugar was not the only contributor to food dependence and elevated risk of weight gain. They said that high fat and ultra processed foods were also involved in this entire addiction cycle. How to get rid of carb addiction? So there are controversial report that says there might be addiction, there might not be, but the sweet tooth or the craving for sweet or refined carbohydrate, that is true. That is true because by practice, I can tell you that most of the people come and tell me that I have a craving for pizza very often. I can't get rid of French fries. So having said that, let us talk about few techniques or steps that can help you to get rid of carb addiction. The first step to overcome carb addiction is to understand that specific addictive behavior towards a food can't be tackled only by willpower, but by a healthy lifestyle. Most of the time, it's so complex that you blame yourself, think that this is a problem of you, which like where you are not able to control it, but the process is pretty complex. The the important techniques can be throw all the heavy carbs from your fridge. Stay away from some most addictive foods such as pizza, chips, cakes, pastries, and fries. Choose healthy foods by practicing mindful eating that helps you identify the trigger. Include protein foods from both animal and vegetable sources in each meal to stay full for long. Eat more fiber-rich foods like whole grains and whole fruits to avoid hunger pangs. Sweet taste in fruits helps with the sugar craving too. Stay hydrated. Set an alarm to drink water or quench your thirst with watery foods like cucumber, watermelon, muskmelon, etc. Be physically active. Choose a workout regime that combines both cardio and strength training. Take stairs whenever you can. Walk at least 7,000 steps, if not 10,000. Last but not the least, be kind to yourself. Giving into carb addiction is common. Take progressive step to find out a suitable technique to fight carb craving rather than blaming yourself. So the bottom line is carbs are the most conventional sources of energy in daily Indian diet and across the globe. Not all carbs are bad. Some high fiber carbohydrates are healthy and produce multiple health benefits. It's the processed and ultra processed foods high in salt, sugar, and fat that collectively cause addictive behavior in many individuals. However, more extensive research is encouraged to understand the mechanism of carb addiction in humans that involves neurological response. Thank you.